Hello, everyone. It's Brenda here. I am in a different setting today, as you can see, different artwork behind me. I am at my daughter's house in Maryland, and so you could hear grandchildren in the background, but that's cool. That's what makes it live, right? So I was thinking today what we might discuss is how focusing on delight and desire can help in a situation like feeling overwhelmed, or feeling on the verge of burnout or just some sort of exhaustion. Oh my gosh, Janice Brown. Hey, Janice. Kind of close to you. I'm in Maryland, so at least I'm on the East Coast. Yeah. Love it, love it. Okay, Janice, I don't think you really truly want to come live in the screen with me. I think you're just, you are live in the live. If I have you join the way Instagram does it, a join means you're going to be on the split screen with me having a conversation with me. So I don't know if that's what you really want. You can tell me in the comments if you actually want to come live on the screen with me. Hey, Liz, good to see you too. So I thought we would talk about this idea of how I really want the concept of using delight and desire as a tool to your, sort of journey of awakening, to have it be, of course, super practical. So when we look at something like feeling overwhelmed or feeling even just exhausted and kind of in that burnout thing where we've just been doing too much for too long with other people. Hey, Sherry, how are you? Okay. All right, let's see. I think we're going to have Janice here. All right, I don't know. That didn't do exactly what I thought it would, but at any rate, um, there we go. Oh, thank you. Oh, do you? Yes, it's the, Van Gogh, not an original. Van Gogh and his beautiful sunflowers. I love it. It's so funny. We have the same picture. Well, you and my daughter. So when we look at exhaustion and overwhelm, first of all, one of the really important things, and hey, Amber. Hey, Amber, great to see you here today, too. It's wonderful having you with me live. This is great. So, it's always important to look at when we're in overwhelm, like what what was leading up to that, what sort of caused that, so to speak. And it's not usually one thing. Even if one thing seems to be the straw that broke the camel's back, sort of a thing, there was a series of things that happened that led up to getting to the point of feeling burned out or overwhelmed or exhausted. And so usually, and you can kind of do this right now in your own mind, but if you think of that, if you're feeling that way now, or think back to a time where you did, it's almost always because you ended up doing things for other people, and it just, the amount of things you're doing, for time you're spending, energy you're spending, doing things for other people, and the amount of time or energy you've spent doing for yourself or taking care of yourself got out of balance. So that was actually what my blog was about today. And if any of you are not on my email list and you want to be, please just DM me and tell me. All I need is your email address and your name. If your Instagram name doesn't, give me the, a clue to what your real name is, then tell me your actual name. And I'll add you to my list, because I email each week some sort of information and inspirational blog, and then I also email out my podcast every Sunday, so you have an easy link to hop into that podcast. But at any rate, it's usually this lack of balance between how much I'm doing for others and how much I'm doing for myself. So our self-care gets out of whack. It gets set aside. And that usually, and you guys can tell me if you relate to this, is not one thing. Like, occasionally there's just a big life thing that kind of takes you out. But a lot of times it's several smaller things that any one of them would have been fine. So that's how it can kind of get out of hand with us, is like, oh, I'll go the extra mile today for this person because of some circumstance. So you do that. But then right after that, another circumstance comes up that somebody needs you to do. And it's like, oh, okay, I'll do this one more. And then it's one more and it's one more. And all of a sudden, then we hit that point, not because any one of those things would have brought us into overwhelm, but the combination of them does. And so that's why sort of taking care of and being tuned in to the smaller things in our lives is so important, because even though it can often feel like it was the big thing that took us out, it's usually a collection of smaller things that end up adding up. And then we're suddenly feeling overwhelmed, or we're suddenly exhausted, or we realize, we're really getting burned out, and our, brains just feel totally, used up, so to speak. So I think overwhelm, Liz, can lead to exhaustion. I think sometimes we use those words interchangeably. Uh, so any individual might feel like they're kind of the same thing, or you use them interchangeably. But to me, I can be exhausted without being overwhelmed. So I think personally, I think of exhaustion, and you guys can tell me where you fall on this, because there's no right or wrong. It's just good to know your own self in this way, right? So for me, oh my gosh, KBH Coaching is right here with us. Hey, Kimberly. Usually exhaustion for me is very much a physical thing. So I just haven't gotten enough sleep for whatever reasons. And so I just, in my body, I feel physically exhausted. Whereas overwhelm for me, the way I, think about it in my own mind, overwhelm includes a very emotional and mental piece where I feel like I'm emotionally and mentally sort of tapped out. And so, a lot of times, again, that includes a physical exhaustion, but not always, not for me. So I'm wondering how that is for you guys, if you can see them separately taking effect in your life, or if they seem to always go hand in hand. But to me, exhaustion and overwhelm are different, in that I think of exhaustion as a physical thing, which of course affects us emotionally and mentally. But overwhelm to me is much more of a definite mental thing. Like, I had a big drama. I won't go into, because it's not all my story to tell, but last week when I arrived here on the East Coast, and it made for a lot of changes, like all of a sudden a lot of physical changes, a lot of emotional information to take in, a lot of, upset and anger and things like that. And so I wouldn't have labeled it for myself as being overwhelmed, but whatever. I was pretty tapped out. And so it took my mental and emotional energy to just sort of process all that and deal with that and respond to that. I continued to get good rest. And so I didn't feel exhausted, but I was very, again, maybe not quite to the degree where I would say I was overwhelmed, but I was, I was getting there, because it was just a lot. And so we can use these tools of delight and desire to help bring us back towards our own individual balance. And, that's the other thing that's so important, is the only, I almost hate to use the word balance even because it's a very loosey-goosey word that it's hard to know what it really means and what it looks like and how do we describe it. How do I know I'm there? It's very individual. You know you're there because you can feel it. You can feel a pretty, again, quote unquote, balanced engagement of I'm doing my self care, I'm doing my work, I'm engaging with friends or family, I'm, you know, whatever the things are you want to do, need to do. Yeah, permission to rest is a really big one. And I can't remember why, but a few years ago, I got over that. Like I just gave myself a permanent permission slip for rest. And I think part of it is because in some kind of short term, I don't remember the specifics right now, but I must have like said like, whatever, I will often do a thing like, okay, for this week, I'm just going to let myself off the hook for this thing, and so whatever, maybe I did a week of, I get to sleep as much as I want. I kind of cleared my calendar to, went to bed early or whatever. And it felt so damn good. I never gave it up. And so I am very good at resting, but I didn't used to be because I am such a doer by nature that it's very easy for me to get caught up in tasks and just always, whether it's something for work, something for the family, or uh, something around the house. I used to, oh my gosh, when I was younger and had 4 kids at home, I was really bad about not being able to rest at home because if I was home, I would just see, oh, there's laundry that needs to be done. Oh, I should dust. Oh, I should, there's always something else to do, for housekeeping or something. And so I wouldn't allow myself to rest. And so, yeah, Kim, I'm glad you like that. That idea of giving ourselves permission and to just say, if a week feels like too much, just give it to yourself for the day. And I did this about, I don't know, a month or 6 weeks ago around my finances, actually. And I just said, like, not to be whatever, TMI, but like I've made enough money to support myself since my, horrible trauma years of going without a home for 3 years. And, but I would say, like not a lot of extra spending money. Not as much as I want. I love spending money. I love disposable cash. I love to shop. I love to eat out a lot. I love to travel a lot. And so because my budget has been sort of, uh, smaller than I ideally want it to be, like I kept the story going on in my head, like I wasn't going to have enough or I was only going to barely have enough or whatever. And about a month or 6 weeks ago, I'm not sure how, probably closer to 6. Anyway, I was just like, forget that. I have had everything I've needed for the 2 years I've had my apartment. I'm signing my, third renewal. So I'm headed into my 3rd year in my apartment. I love it. I love where I am. I've had enough to do everything. I pay all my bills on time. Like I was just like, so stop it, Brenda. Like just stop putting this mental pressure on yourself to, that looks like we're going to run out or we're never going to have enough or whatever. And it was so liberating. And I haven't given it up. Once I gave myself permission to give it up for a few days or a week, I think I started with a week. I think I started with a day. And once I did it a day, I'm like, okay, so could I do this for a week? And it was like, okay, another week, and another week. And I'm just staying with it. And business has not suffered. And I'm not working any harder. In fact, I'm not working as hard. And everything is still fine, So yeah, Kim, like even an hour, like if you have something that fucks with your brain, an anxiety, a worry, whatever it is, then just to give yourself an hour of a break from it. Just, I'm going to let this go. Because here's what I know for absolute sure is that all those worrying thoughts about our problem, even if it's a legit problem, okay, I went a lot of months, I went years there with not enough money to pay my bills. So it doesn't matter. It could be a legit problem or one you imagine or one you're just afraid is going to happen or whatever. we never find the best solution to that problem through that worrying mind. Like when the really good, sustainable solutions come, it's because we get out of the anxiety and the worry of it, and we get into a more relaxed, a more curious, a more playful way of being in our minds. Like actually, even that expression. Oh, thank you, Kimberly. You're so sweet. I'm glad you liked my advice and that this is inspirational to you. Thank you. You're so sweet. So when the term word eureka, for you just figured out something, eureka actually came because somebody, a mathematician, back in way long time ago, was trying to figure out some math problem and was so frustrated with it, had been working on it for hours, maybe days, whatever the story goes, went and got in the bathtub to just relax and take a bath, and in the bathtub realized what the solution was. So we've all had that happen, right? Where we're trying to figure something out. And then when we stop trying to figure it out and go distract ourselves with something else that is delightful, hence our theme, then boom, we get an idea, or something comes across, our awareness, or a person shows up with an idea about it or whatever. So we're never in our best problem solving mode anyway. Even if you're in a crisis, a legit real crisis, the worrying mind is not going to fix that. And so that's why I have found this whole idea of thinking about, well, what would delight me? What do I desire? Then that will help me start to get, now, when I'm really in it, desire is usually too strong. It's too far away from where I am. But delight gets me closer, right? Delight feels easier to me. Like if I'm in a kind of a stuck place and I try to think, oh, what would I desire in this situation? Usually just something sarcastic or, ridiculous is going to come out of my internal mind because I'm too far away from the true feeling of desire. But delight helps me get there. Delight feels a little more accessible. Worrying being a luxury emotion. Oh, that's interesting. I like that. I like that. It doesn't do any damn thing for us. There's nothing that it does that is good for us. So worrying will not help you figure it out. So being able to get to where, like when I was in the sort of drama that I got caught up in last week, involves some last minute change of plans physically for, where I'm staying and stuff like that. And just logistics around my trip. And so then it's like, okay, so now I'm not going to get to do this the way I wanted to. What the original plan was full of delight, and now that's falling apart. And so what can I do, even though I'm not going to get, what I wanted, so to speak? What can I do that will make it as delightful as possible, right? What can I do given this upset and change in my logistics that would be more delightful than another alternative, right? Then I can start comparing, like, oh, well, I could do this, I could do that, I could, for me, some of it was transportation. So like I could Uber, I could rent a car, I could, see if I can borrow a car, I could, like I'm running through the sort of options that I have. And then thinking, okay, so which one feels more delightful? And in the end, I decided to rent a car for a couple of days that I had a need for one. Anyway, I just went to go pick it up a few hours ago. And for those of you who don't know me this well, which many of you probably don't, anyway, I drive a Mustang. I have a convertible, but I love fast cars. I love American muscle. I like European cars too. So I like all cars that are fast, okay? So I go to pick up my rental car today, and I've just rented I guess I went full size, so it was supposed to be a Maxima or, Alta, Nissan, whatever theirs is. Anyway, boring, but perfectly fine, good car, right? So I go to pick it up, and they don't have the car I'm supposed to have available, but they have a Dodge Challenger, which, if you know cars, it's an equivalent to a Mustang. It's a fast, very big rumble, out of the engine, and a very fast, fun car. So I was like, excellent, that is delightful to me. So this thing that started out a few days ago being very disruptive and very both emotionally and physically upsetting, because I kept trying to point myself towards the delight. Okay, I didn't get what I wanted. It was upsetting. It rocked my world in a lot of ways, but how I know that delight is going to start taking me back to my center, my truth, right? So worry does not take you to your truth. Worry does not take you out of overwhelm. Worry is not going to take you, out of being exhausted. Those things are not going to take you out of that state of mind. So we need something that's going to take us out of that state of mind. The same way that you could be having your worst day ever, and if somebody knocked on your door and handed you a check for $1 million, you would suddenly be having a great day. It wouldn't matter what all the other horrible things were. So we're all quite capable of changing our feeling states really pretty quickly. You've had a bad day and you get a call from somebody out of the blue, or maybe you even just watch something that you love on Netflix or something, and it just changes your state. So we all know how to do that. The trick is being able to do it for ourselves and choose it, right? To give us that, to be aware enough in the moment to say, okay, I've got this thing that's moving me into overwhelm or into exhaustion or something like that. A place I don't want to, that is no fun to be emotionally. Now, how can I move towards back into my truth, which is going to, at a minimum, have peace in it? Even if you're still having to do a hard thing, so to speak, as we move towards our truth, even if we still have to leave a job, leave a relationship, have a really difficult conversation, whatever it is, that isn't, you wouldn't describe probably as delightful. When it's in your truth, it's at least going to have that sort of core of peace. There's a certain calmness to it. And then when it's not something super difficult, you can move it right into delight. Okay, well, that didn't go the way I wanted it to, but now what's the benefit of it? I'm going to get to spend more time with my girlfriend than I thought. I got to come to my daughter's a day early. Then we can choose to see the parts that are benefiting us, even in the thing that really upset us. Yes, Sherry, totally. Delight can give us such a feeling of love. I think I equate delight and love all the time, because in that state of love and compassion, it's very easy to go to something delightful. And so that's why I find that this works, no matter, as much as it may seem kind of counterintuitive, or even towards toxic positivity or something, to be like, oh, just focus on what you delight in, what you desire. No, I'm far too practical for that. So yes, it's that, but we're not dismissing the stuff that's hard, or how we got out of balance by giving too much, one yes at a time, that led us towards exhaustion or led us towards overwhelm, or something happens, like in my situation last week, totally out of my control. Didn't have anything to do with me. I just got caught up in it. That, even in those states, to be able to use delight as a tool to get you back into your truth, back into a grounded place in your own self. Like the stuff, what was happening last week involved other people. Wasn't just me, so I'm not in control of all of it. I can't control what the other people are doing and how they're thinking and feeling. That's all their responsibility. All I can do is take care of myself. And delight will move us towards that self-love and being able to prioritize what we need, including the extra rest. Because I think when we don't allow ourselves to rest, and not just rest, I also mean like actual sleep, right? To really sleep, then it's much harder to access these inner power, superpowers that we have. power tools, I was going to say, that seems weird, but it's a powerful tool. So when we're exhausted or we're feeling overwhelmed, it's harder for us to access those tools that are inside of us all the time, waiting for us to use them. And it's very easy to go to external things. I'm going to go ask somebody else what to do. I'm going to go drink too much, eat too much, shop too much, whatever the thing is, right? That is outside of you that you use to distract you. I could have gotten caught up in blame on the other people who did the other things that disrupted my life, okay? But none of that's going to do me any good. I can't do anything about the other people. You know, if I drink too much, that's not going to help. It might even be worse. I might have a hangover, right? Like, none of that external stuff helps. The truth is, the only thing that really helps is going inside and moving towards what delights you, or moving towards love. I mean, I also often think, you know, that love is, if we could just focus on that, that would cure everything, you know, because all I want is, how would love respond? How would love respond? You know, and love is going to sometimes say no to somebody, or no to me, you know, my own internal boundary of a no, I can't do that, like have a fifth Cosmo or something like that, right? So love does say no, and love says yes a lot, and love will move you towards something that feels better. Love will move you towards rest. Love will move you towards boundaries. Love will move you towards delight. We just find a lot of different ways to kind of articulate the same dynamics so that we can wrap our head around them, because we've been so conditioned to believe that what's outside of us is somehow bigger or stronger or more powerful than what's inside of us. What I'm always talking about is the exact opposite. What is inside of you is so much more powerful than anything that could be happening outside of you. Oh, yeah, Liz. Wonderful soft piano music that takes you to another level of sleep for 8 hours. Yeah, I am such a big fan of soft piano music. I play it, other than when I'm on something like this, a live, or, you know, on a call with somebody, I have soft piano music playing in my background at home almost all the time. I love it. So yeah, it's like, but we have to get to know ourselves to know that. So many of us have spent our whole lives thinking about what would make somebody else feel delightful. You know, what do you want? What kind of music do you prefer? What kind of setting do you want? What do you want for dinner tonight? You know, like all the things, big and small. We're so focused on what somebody else wants. We don't always even take the time to know what we want, let alone give it to ourselves. So I love that. Yeah, big fan of the soft piano music. And so our time is about up today. So I'm curious, did this resonate? Does it make sense to take that, even something that is a, you know, whatever, I'm going to call it negative, but it happens to all of us, and there's nothing wrong with you because you get overwhelmed or exhausted or burned out. But when we get to those states that don't feel good, to use delight, to be able to ask that question of, okay, what could make this a little more delightful? How could I bring delight into this and make it just a little bit better? Or love, if you want to use that word, to help bring you out of that state and into a state where you're more grounded, more into your own internal wise, you know, person that is in there inside of you, that can show you the way, that can give you the way that you need to navigate from where you are. Somebody else might need something totally different in the exact same situation. Doesn't matter. It's what works for you. Oh, Sherry, I love that. Listening to the owl outside your bedroom window in the middle of the night and having your hand on your dog, that's lovely. We had an owl. It's funny because I live, you know, in an apartment complex in a pretty congested area, Huntington Beach. I mean, I'm really close to the beach, and there are no high rises on the beach in Huntington, so it's all residential, so it's not as crowded as maybe some places are. But we had an owl for several months, and oh my gosh, you're right. It's just so soothing, I think, to hear their little, hoo, hoo. I love it. I love the sound of birds. I love that. I love the sound of the ocean. That's very soothing and relaxing. Getting yourself in nature is another great way to start to create delight, to start to change your state so that you can come up, changing your state doesn't necessarily solve the problem, but from that changed state, you can find different solutions than you can find when you are in that state of, overwhelm or anger or whatever it is. um, those are not usually very like productive states to be in to solve a problem. Sometimes anger can be, but a lot of times it just spins us off. And so I had some anger I needed to feel, but I knew I needed to get to something a little lighter and something that felt more loving to figure out what my next move was, given the upset that happened. So you're welcome, Sherry. I love being with you guys. I will be here again every Tuesday, noon Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern. I love your DMs. Let me know a topic that you want me to cover, something that resonated with you that I said. Like I said, if you're not on my email list, DM me your email and I'll get you on my list so you get the blog post every week and you get the podcast every Sunday. And then I'm also putting all these episodes in a podcast list on YouTube. So I'm downloading them after we're done here and then transferring them into YouTube. So because they're so much easier to watch there than I think they are trying to rewatch them on Instagram. And thank you, Sherry. Yeah, Sherry knows I have a dream. That's how this whole thing got started with Delight and Desire, because I want to be on TV and I want to, through my own show or being on other people's show, I want to start creating this shift in our cultural beliefs around getting help from a coach just for part of self-care, right? Just for that. We cannot have self-care without mental health care, right? And so, oh my gosh, hey Rachels, it's Chelsea, my favorite photographer. Thank you for coming. And we're getting ready to wrap up here. But I'm so glad you made it. And maybe another time you can go, oh, I love you, sweetie. You're such a powerful woman and such a true creative and artist and fabulous human being. And I love you. And I'm so glad you were here before I said goodbye. But yeah, I really want to shift this conversation and shift the perspective that working with a coach, not just when you're in crisis, and the same would be true with going to a therapist. I'm just not a therapist. So I have to do it from my own perspective. But to work with a coach in your life, it just makes it easier. That's all there is to it. I have a lot of clients who stay with me. Some now have been with me for a couple of years because they know that when they have regular sessions, we might only do 1 or 2 in a month or something like that, but they just know it helps them navigate their life in an easier way than it would if they didn't. So in my own mind, it's like I'm just a resource. The same way a personal trainer, you don't ever not need a personal trainer at the gym, right? Like we can just do it on our own and not pay for one, sure. But if I paid for one, there's always going to be this added value, assuming you have a good personal trainer, right? And it's not like, oh, I worked out with them for 3 months and now I don't need it anymore, because then they just go at a deeper level and you get healthier and healthier and healthier. And that's the same way coaching is. I just help people continue to up level. So the people who have been working with me a long time, we're not working on the same stuff. We're working on the next thing, right? And helping them. And for me, because this is, my perspective on coaching, and it is fairly common in the coaching arena, is that all I'm doing is getting you to your truth in any given situation. I'm not giving you advice on how to handle things and do it this way and do it that way. I'll give you tools, I'll give you ideas, but what I'm really doing is helping you find your own truth. Yes, yes, Kimberly, that's totally true. It's a mirror. And we can't see the backside of our head without a mirror. And having a coach is holding up a mirror. Yeah, I will always have a coach. Me too. Me too. Yes. Yeah. So that is like on a that's my global mission, is to change the perspective of that. And I think television is probably the best way to do it. So this is my precursor to my future television show or whatever streaming show. So thank you all for being here. I love all of you. Mwah. And yes, you head over to YouTube for the replays, are probably easier than finding them here on Instagram. I did set up a series on Instagram, but it's also a podcast playlist on my YouTube channel, which is just Brenda Florida. So I love you guys too. Mwah, mwah. Thank you so much for being here. Kimberly, it must be very late at night for you. But I'm so glad you're here, and I love you all. Mwah. See you next week.